Well, good morning, and as you can see, I'm rocking out already. It is 6:42 in the morning. It is still dark outside. I've been up since 5 o'clock. Um, I'm drinking some Theraflu because I've been fighting off a cold for the last couple of days. It's not been my hairline is not straight. Yeah, I've been fighting off a cold for the last couple of days, and the last thing I want to do is really the last thing I want to do is work the upcoming election with this cold. Um, the next 3 weekends are going to be really busy, and I don't want to have to deal with that being sick at the same time. So I'm hitting the medication hard today, which means I am probably going to stay inside and bundled up. I may do laundry this afternoon, but I will probably stay inside except to go out to get something to eat and just beat this as much as I can. And if I have to, I'll go out and do the brandy remedy, which is buy a fifth of brandy and start drinking. Yeah, that's actually worked in the past. But I do feel pretty good, except I just have this little tickle in my throat, and that's never a good sign. So last night I did something I've never done before, and it really just sort of come about by accident. I went out to eat last night around 6 o'clock. If you can't guess, I usually eat out a lot because I'm just I'm just a lazy bitch when it comes to cooking, and most of the meals I have are pre-prepared anyway. But I forgot to take out stuff from the freezer to thaw, so I really had nothing to cook last night, and so I decided I'll just go out and get something to eat, and have a couple of drinks and stuff like that. And I ended up getting home about 8 o'clock. So I had watched the first episode of season 3 of Black Mirror before leaving, and I knew I had to write a recap. So I didn't want to put it off, but at the same time, I was tired. I was a little buzzed on wine, and usually those two are a good combination for just like torturing myself for the next 2 hours of writing. So I thought, why not see if I can actually do voice recognition? Because it's something I've considered for a while, something I've wanted to play with, and I found that, yeah, there's really nothing I could integrate into Shrivenger to do this because naturally I write all my reviews in Shrivenger as well. But I did find that Google Docs actually has its own form of dictation typing, as they call it. So after about 15 minutes of just fooling around trying to figure out, what software I want to use and how to use this and get comfortable with it, I actually managed to write using dictation software about 1,400 words of recap, and I did that in about 40 to 45 minutes. And I learned some things along the way, namely, you can't swear. You have to go through and edit that. And there's some things that the dictation software has trouble picking up anyway. So you have to make certain that you edit the document anyhow. So I came up with this idea of maybe trying for the next couple of scenes in the novel dictating what's going to happen, and then importing that into the Shrivinger novel. Sorry, OCD taking over there. And then making my edits in Shrivinger to get everything nice and neat. Because you can't do everything in dictation. I mean, you can. There are people who have bought Dragon Pro, and they edit and dictate and everything like that. But there's still some issues when you're actually working with that software in Shrivinger. Now, if you're on a Mac, it's a little different, but I don't have a Mac. I have my trusty PC. After 5 months, I'm still having trouble with this keyboard. It's just, I'm better at it, but it's a little difficult to get used to. One of the things I need is I need a new typing chair. And I need not to write. Sorry, I'm exposing my sexy shoulders here. I need not to write when I'm tired and or a little drunk. But, and you can see that, like early in the morning when my creative juices are flowing and everything's working together and I'm in a proper writing mode, I can sit down and crank out 1,000 words in about an hour and a half. That's not a problem. But when I come home at night, that's usually when I'm only like getting 300-400 words out a night. And it is because I'm really tired when I'm doing all this stuff. So I thought, why not try that? Why not finish out the current scene I'm in with Carrie and Annie, or Annie and Carrie, I should say. I always put Annie before Carrie. And then maybe even the next scene. And I figured the way I'd do that would be to do the dictation in Google Docs and then save it off to my hard drive. Then I can upload or actually import the document into Shrivinger. And I'm deleting that file off right now. And then make my edits in Shrivinger, because I'm going to have to edit all the documents anyway. And as I type, I normally go back and re-edit everything anyhow. So the way I'm kind of looking at it is, you know, I can dictate in 300, 400, 500 word blocks. And if I can do that in, say, like 15, 20 minutes, and then import into Shrivinger, and then spend, say, 5 to 10 minutes doing some quick edits, that will increase my productivity considerably. And that's really what I'm looking at, is importing my productivity. Because at the rate of like 300-400 words a night, it's going to take me forever to write this novel. Even more so than before, but if I could get back into the swing of doing like 1,200 words of transcription and editing in, say, an hour and a half or 2 hours, then the novel takes off. And that's really where I'm looking to go. An interesting experiment would be to do this for NaNoWriMo. I know people will go, that's not writing. Well, screw you. It is writing, because I still have to creatively come up with this crap in my head and get it down on paper, just because I'm not using my fingers. That's like saying, unless you're writing with cuneiform tablets, get out of my face. You know, there's some Egyptian 3,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, is going, well, you're not doing this document in hieroglyphics. You're not writing. Software is a tool, and there was a time when we wrote by hand, longhand. There was a time when we wrote on typewriters, and they were manual typewriters, and we liked it. Well, no, we didn't. I've worked on a manual typewriter. We didn't like it. Well, we had to do it because that's all we had. Then there were electric typewriters, and then there were word processors. And then there were computers with word processing programs. It's all a tool. It's all a tool. One of the things that wasn't known about Rod Serling, who wrote most of the episodes of the original TV show, The Twilight Zone, was that he often dictated the scripts. He didn't write them. He would actually dictate them and then give the dictation tapes to his secretary, or secretaries as the case may be, and they would actually produce the first draft of the script, and then he would go through and actually edit them. Reason for this was he was just far too busy to sit down and crank away at the typewriter. So, dictation worked for him. And then he'd give it off to somebody else to type up. A number of his episodes were done that way, simply because they said it was actually easy for him to work out the script as a stream of consciousness. So I think that's my next leap, my next experiment, is to see how I can do that. And if this works well and I actually like it and I see how it comes out, I'm considering dropping $75 on, basic Dragon. And doing the same thing, writing stuff up in the Dragon pad, as they call it, the notepad, and then importing it into Shrivenger for final edit. The other thing that would actually allow me to do too is I can have Shrivenger in one window, or I could even, put it up on the screen next to me here. If I had a 2-screen computer, this would be easy. I could have Shrivenger in one window looking up stuff while I dictate. So it's one of the things that can make it easy, but I think definitely it's going to help my recapping, because I can get that out of the way real fast. I think for all of Black Mirror, I'm actually going to use dictation software. They'll probably watch a second episode today and do a recap. And if that's the case, I could actually have the entire series recapped that way in a week, and just be done with it. That would be interesting. Yeah, just lots of fun, interesting stuff. And, as we saw yesterday, for those of you that read it, yesterday was actually the lowest number of reads I've had on my blog in a long time. I only had 28. Basically because there was a problem with the internet yesterday, and I think that prevented some people from getting on. In fact, I only had 12 views on the post I put out yesterday. Yeah, stuff like that happens. We had internet blackouts all day long. But anyhow, one of the questions that came up, if you read it, we saw that Carrie just, he sees Annie in the hotel, and he just runs up to her and he gives her a big kiss. Yeah. And I don't mean he was like, let me suck your face. And then tells her in Bulgarian, I love you, Teobi-chan. Teobi-chan is, I love you in Bulgarian. And Annie says the Bulgarian equivalent of I love you too, my darling. Which, let me see if I can pull this up here. So what she actually says is, Esuto Teobi-chan skupa moja. Something like that. Asuto Teobi-chan skupa moja. Yes, Auntie's very romantic. She is. She's a romantic little girl. We know she is. But the big thing that happened there was, of course, Annie's mom was standing right behind these two. Because when you walk into that hotel, there's a lounge over here on one side, and there's the check-in desk over here on the other side. And she was standing over by the check-on desk, and Carrie just rushed right in without looking, and swept Annie up and kissed her. And Mom and Ms. Rutherford just happened to be watching this, and it was a case of, okay, she was kind of cool about it. She was like, I remember what it was like to be in love. Don't worry. Just be glad your father's not here to have seen this, because he might have had a completely different reaction. But of course, I get a question asked from Ren, who has been my biggest reader for a long time, her and Sky and Christy and a few others. But Ren's like, wow, if Carrie does this in public, I wonder what they do in private. Well, what do they do in private? No, they don't do anything. They're good kids. We know they're not having intercourse, so don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it does make you wonder, because these two are pretty frisky. And now that they're getting older, I mean, we begin to see last year, or in the last book actually, I talk about this like it's actually happening. But we actually saw in the last book that, yeah, they're starting to feel hormonal pressures. They're both now teenagers. I mean, Carrie was 12 last year. Nowadays, 12 is the new 16. But Carrie was feeling the pressure. Annie was definitely starting to feel the pressure. Her little hormones are raging pretty hard. And it's hitting her. So, will we ever find out if they're messing around or something? Well, it's possible. I mean, you never know. But like I said, they're not having intercourse. We know that. Sorry about that. So they're not having intercourse. What we do know of their sexual proclivities is that they have both admitted that they masturbate. And that's it. Yeah, that's all we've heard from them. Because, they're teenagers. That's like a common routine for teenagers these days. Oh, I'm bored. I think I'll masturbate. At least it's like that for boys. Well, was like that for boys. I don't know about that. I don't hang around any 13-year-old boys, so I can't tell you for sure. But I do remember when I did hang around with 13-year-old boys. And some of them were, yeah. We don't want to talk about that. So maybe one day we'll find out what's happening with those two. But next scene, something big's coming up. Paris is going to be fun, but it's also going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be a little bit sad too. And you'll get to hear about a bit of my travels when I was in Paris for 4 days in 2006. I really miss that city. I want to go back so bad. I miss Paris tremendously. I miss Europe. I had a blast when I was in Europe. So we're coming up on 20 minutes. I don't want to bore you anymore. Tonight, everybody Wang Chung tonight. Yeah. I should go dancing. I really should. So. I will let you go at this point, and I hope you all have a good morning, and I hope this video gets seen. Talk to you later. Bye. Bye.